This is the first of a three-part mini-series about the Technical Director's Work Experience Week. In the UK, school kids have to do 1 week's work experience in Year 10. She decided to work for me, and so we visited power plants and went camping. In case the teachers are watching, it definitely wasn't a holiday. The first place we visited was Morecambe, which is an hour's drive north of Manchester and a similar distance south to the Scottish border. This video is split into chapters. The first portion is a ride around Morecambe. However, if you want to, you can skip straight to the chapter on Heysham nuclear power plant, which describes the power plant and the technology in general. Morecambe is a seaside town next to the city of Lancaster. The name comes from Latin Morecambiris Aestuaris and means multiple estuaries on a curved sea, which is more accurate than its current name of Morecambe Bay. Morecambe was a thriving seaside resort in the 1900s, with guests mainly coming from Yorkshire and Scotland. It was home to the largest pontoons in England. Tourism is still important due to the wind farms and nuclear power plants. Plus of course the seaside. The tourism sector has diminished due to piers being damaged by fires and storms, plus competition from Blackpool and international travel becoming much cheaper. The most famous son of Morecambe is Eric Bartholomew, more popularly known as Eric Morecambe, from the comedy duo Morecambe and Wise. For those unfamiliar with the duo, I've left a link to a show so you can enjoy it. They met when they were in the Jack Hilton show Youth Takes a Bow, and in 1941 began their comedy double act. It lasted until Morecambe's death in 1984. The Lancaster Canal is one of England's few coastal canals. It's 66 kilometres, 41 miles long, and unusually has no locks. starts in Cumbria and is 85 km 53 miles long. Lune comes from the ancient Briton language meaning full or healthy. Due to the amount of rainfall we've had this year, it was living up to its name. The River Lune was used during the Industrial Revolution to transport wool, coal and other key commodities and goods. I hope you enjoyed your ride around Morecambe and will continue watching for the nuclear power plant. If you've enjoyed this video and would like to see more, please hit the like, subscribe and bell buttons. In this second chapter, we look at Heysham nuclear power plant, including its technology. I've never worked in the nuclear industry, but have worked on all its competitors, and so I have a vested interest that is against it. Heysham has two nuclear power plants called Heysham 1 and Heysham 2. Each has two advanced gas-cooled reactors and the facility's capacity is 2,385 megawatt. It generates about 5% of the UK's total demand. Heysham 1 started operation in 1983 and Heysham 2 in 1988. Their design life was 25 years, however they were operated for over 40 years when they are decommissioned. Nuclear power plants are designed to operate at base load, meaning once started they remain at full capacity until they are shut down for maintenance or fuel replacement, which can be as infrequently as every 2 years. The power generation portion of a nuclear power plant uses a steam cycle in the same way a coal plant or back end of a gas plant does. However, the thermal energy used to convert water into steam comes from the nuclear decay in the reactor. The nuclear fuel source is uranium, which is a widely abundant element and is as common as lead. It is found everywhere, including rocks, the sea and even in the human body, although mining mostly occurs in Australia, Kazakhstan and Canada. It has 92 protons and between 142 and 146 neutrons. The most common form is uranium-238, however the form required for a nuclear power plant to operate is uranium-235. The proportion of uranium-235 is increased or enriched from about 0.7% when mined to between 3 and 5% using a centrifuge. A link in the description explains how centrifuges work. The low-grade enriched uranium is supplied to the reactor as fuel pellets, which are then inserted into rods that are placed in the reactor. The Heysham reactors are cooled using carbon dioxide with a graphite moderator. Alternative cooling systems are used at other plants. When the nucleus of a U-235 atom is hit by a moving neutron, it splits into two, fission, and releases some energy in the form of heat. Also, 2 or 3 additional neutrons are thrown off. The released neutrons cause the nuclei of other U-235 atoms to split, releasing further neutrons. A fission chain reaction then occurs, releasing a large amount of heat from a relatively small amount of uranium. The heat is transferred to water in the steam cycle, which is then superheated and fed through steam turbines, where the energy is converted into mechanical energy as the blades in the turbine rotate. The blades are attached to a metal bar or rotor that is connected to the generator. Electricity in the generator is induced or created through electromagnetic induction. The process is based on magnetism. The portion of the rotor inside the generator has magnets, and inside of the generator casing there are copper wires which are also magnetic. When magnets of opposite poles, north-south, face each other, they attract, and when those of the same poles, north-north or south-south, face each other, they repel. In most countries, the rotor rotates at 50 times per second, and thus changes from attraction to repulsion 50 times per second. This is known as 50 Hz. America does everything bigger, so they rotate faster at 60 Hz or 3,600 revolutions per minute. This is why America operates at a different frequency to most other countries. The steam is passed through steam turbines and reheated until it loses all its energy, after which the steam needs to be condensed into water and fed back into the boiler. The energy remaining in the steam is removed and extracted using cooling water, which in turn heats up. In the UK, nuclear power plants are often located next to the sea, and so the excess heat is released into the sea within the allowable temperature limit increase, which is capped below that by which it naturally fluctuates throughout the year, and so the release of thermal energy is not considered a hazard to the environment. For plants where it's not possible to discharge heated water into the sea, it will be released into the air through cooling towers, such as the parabolic design cooling towers that are iconic of nuclear plants, but please note that this design can also be used on other thermal plants. Electricity from the generator is stepped up or has its voltage increased using transformers so that it can be exported to the grid to power our electrical needs. In terms of environmental footprint, an operational nuclear power plant releases no greenhouse gases or air pollutants. Thermal energy released in the environment is considered benign. Any wastewater discharge will have to comply with environmental standards. Noise is mitigated through design. The main waste is solid radioactive waste, with the highly radioactive waste being less than 2 tablespoons per UK resident per year. The total amount of high-grade radioactive waste that has been produced and will be produced from all existing and closed UK nuclear power plants would fit into a single Olympic-sized swimming pool. However, the half-life or time it takes for half of the material to have decayed for U-235 is 700 million years, or to put that into perspective, 700 million years ago, the Earth was covered in ice from tropics to the poles. The half-life of U-238 is 4.5 billion years, or about the age of our solar system. Public concern is not just about waste, but also accidents. The biggest nuclear accident was Chernobyl. Reliable data is hard to come by, but estimates of the death toll range from 4,000 to many hundreds of thousands over the long term, with millions affected. Chernobyl was a disaster that occurred due to poor design and operators overriding safety procedures. The other 2 serious accidents were at 3 Mile Island and Fukushima Daiichi. Pennsylvania Department of Health ran a study for 18 years after 3 Mile Island and found no noticeable change in the rate of cancers near the site. For Fukushima, 1 worker died years later of cancer believed to be due to the accident, while 2,313 deaths are reported to have occurred due to the way that the evacuation was handled, plus the related stress. It's also worth bearing in mind the annual level of deaths from the nuclear industry and other power plant sectors due to accidents and air pollution. Contrary to popular opinion, nuclear comes out as a very safe technology in comparison. So what are the downsides of nuclear? The top one is definitely cost. It's by far the most expensive technology on a life cycle basis. However, once the plant is built, they are cheap to operate and maintain with a very low cost for fuel. Although the environmental impact once a plant is built are relatively low, their construction releases significant quantities of greenhouse gases and other pollutants, either at the construction site or through the manufacturing process. Although they are great at baseload operation, they aren't flexible enough to solve the peaks and troughs of grids, especially as intermittent renewable energy sources grow as a proportion to the total grid. Another issue with nuclear power is the very long time from signing a contract to producing power. The construction period for a utility-scale solar project can be as little as 6 months, whereas nuclear plants can take 7 to 10 years to construct, sometimes even longer. Of more importance, especially in a country like the UK, permitting is much harder and longer for nuclear than for other technologies, although none are easy. In summary, if a nuclear plant is operational and detailed analysis shows it can continue to operate safely, there's little reason to permanently shut it down. For new build, there needs to be significant political will to overcome the cost and public perception issues, and even then it may not be the optimal solution. One of the possible solutions is small modular reactors, which are effectively submarine technology that's been modified to generate electricity only. The Russians have built and are operating one, but there is no reliable, publicly available information on its performance. I hope you enjoyed this description of how a nuclear power plant works. In this series, we'll also look at a hydro and a wind farm.